Okay, so it's Lou Martin here with my dear friend Tracy O'Connor. Hey, Tracy.
Hi, Lou. Hi, everybody.
Good. Hi, hi, hi. We're glad to have you here. So, Tracy and I have had a chat here before, and Joanne and I were up in Meath and in Dublin, and Tracy showed us around the Hill of Tara on our Sunday up there a couple weeks ago now, 3 weeks, I think. And we had a fantastic time. And Tracy, you were mentioning that you have a big event coming up, and I said, well, let's get on and do a Zoom chat so we can tell people what's happening. So
Cool.
take it away.
As easy as that.
As easy as that. Yeah, sure.
So this event is happening next Sunday, the 2nd of February in Ireland.
What's it called?
In Glendalough, and it's called The Myths of Danu. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, fine.
Yeah, perfect. It's the launch of an event, a project that I've been working on for the last 4 years that has moved me beyond what I imagined.
Right.
It is an expression of the ancient Tuatha De Danann, the ancient race, the ancient mystical shining race of Ireland that are said to have disappeared, sidestepped into the other world. I guess to hold the wisdom that they brought, waiting until, I suppose, humans were ready to receive it again. And
we think this is that time. We think
this
this
is
might be that
definitely the time.
Yeah.
Whether it's the Tuatha De Danann, based on Irish mythology and Celtic wisdom, which I know you're really connected to, as well as are many other people, whether in Ireland or outside Ireland. But there's other myths and legends around the world that speak of the same coming, I suppose, of a light, of a new wisdom, a coming of a new age. So I guess sometimes it's easier to tap into the myths and the legends, connection with a source of a deity that we can connect with. I suppose we've always looked to the outside for wisdom, haven't we? Over time, we've always looked to deities, gods, goddesses, to help guide us through this human life. maybe because let's not go.
Well, no, you're right, sweetheart. I mean, we need all the help we can get, is my motto.
Yeah,
so
true.
Yeah.
So the myths of Danu and the beginning of this journey, it's an 8-part journey, a voyage of self-discovery through Ireland's ancient East. And it begins at Glendalough. Glendalough being a beautiful immersion in nature. And although there is no mythological deities really associated with Glendalough, apart from St. Kevin, which wasn't really a deity, but more a human form, a much later time, my sense is that it is Danu energy because of the beauty of the mountain, the lake, the forest, the trees. I remember being there when I was on the verge of breakthrough in my advertising life years ago, and I went straight to Glendalough and just ran up the mountain until I couldn't stop, until I just nonstop ran up, nearly collapsed at the top. And I just felt, I just needed to release all of that disconnection from my truth, from nature. And it was there that I really kind of found myself reconnecting with nature again. I remember bringing a book. When I look back on it now, I remember bringing a book, a simple book on teaching myself how to meditate. So that's where I suppose the journey really began for me. So it makes sense for me that this would be the start of any other journey that I could bring others on,
Sure.
in the connection with nature. through the myths and the legends of each site, through storytelling and music. So it's an experience, it's an immersion in Glendalough, it's an immersion in the womb of nature.
Brilliant, brilliant.
To be reborn with a lighter heart.
Yes, yes. Well, hun, you know, I just love you to pieces, and I so respect your journey and really all the wisdom, you know, love for the land, love for the people, love for the spirit of Ireland. You know, you're at the top of my list about all that, honest to God. And what I love, Treacy, is, thank you. What I love also, hun, is that, you know, you've been guided how to look at the archetypal energies of each of these deities and saints and gods and goddesses and you know, bigger than life heroes and heroines. And you're giving people a very focused and profound and intimate and personal experience of each of these aspects of ourselves, in order to really weave together something that is grander than the sum of its parts. Does it make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Thanks very much. Can you send me the recording of that?
Sure, absolutely. Yes. Well, they say I have a way with words. I don't know. Yeah, but it's true.
Yeah, it is true. And this has been bubbling up in me for 4 years. When I started my training as a One Spirit Interfaith minister,
right.
The first year we're given tasks. One of the assignments that we have to do is self-directed learning, and so it emerged as that. You know,
self-directed learning is the story of my life.
Exactly. Pushing yourself to the edge, or do something that you feel that you were never comfortable doing.
Sure.
So it evolved, long story, but it evolved from that, and it has brought not just me, but a team of us, because it's my solid and firm belief that there's no more lone wolf, there's no more doing things on our own. We've got to work together, we've got to collaborate. And so it would have been impossible if it was just me.
Sure.
So I guess the seed was born within me, and then from that I was nudged to reach out to certain people, you know, that just came along at the right time. And so there's 8 different sites, as I mentioned, and we piloted 3 of them last year. And the experience of each of those 3 sites was just wilder than we could have ever imagined. We were actually, we had to experience ourselves what the potential for transformation in the participants could be.
Right.
So we could understand the power of it.
Sure.
And it's not a, it's not for the faint-hearted, let's say. But it's also calling us to our courage.
Yeah.
So as you say, it's going through a journey associated with the different myths and legends. So for example, we start at Glendalough, which is our essence of rebirth in connection with Mother Nature, with the true mother within, holding all of that experience of life that we've had in love, in compassion, in softness, in warmth, and holding all of it, not just some of it, not just the bits we like, but all of the bits that have shaped us.
Yeah.
And from there, we go to Kildare. This is part of the bigger journey. We go to Kildare, we connect with the goddess Bridget, which brings the springtime. So it's that sense of re-emergence from the winter, from being born. How are we going to show up in the world? How are we going to shine our light? What's our fire of inspiration? And from there to Ishnok, which is in the center of Ireland, connected with the goddess Eru, the goddess of sovereignty. So how are we in our solar power? And then on to Lochcrew, to our wisdom, etc. So it's like, each of these deities, both male and female along the way, are kind of guiding us through, our rites of passage of each step of our life, so that we can recalibrate, reaffirm ourselves, so that we're reborn then into possibility. It's a voyage of self-discovery from birth to possibility. So we'll see what else wants to unfold, but
sounds like a good start. It's incredible. I mean, honestly, honey, it reminds me of my teacher Lazarus talking about the ancients and the immortals, and basically the this is so connected to what you're sharing here, that The ancients are the ones who have raised their level of consciousness, their courageous and loving hearts, their fearless and loving hearts, and their character and their dignity and integrity and authenticity and all of that, to a place where, you know, they're free of the cycles of death and rebirth. And it really feels to me that these are portals for these kinds of spirit guides to start to come into the lives of people, you and me and many others, you know, who are walking this path in this way in this lifetime.
Yeah.
You know? And it's quite sacred, obviously.
It is, and especially at the sites that have been chosen, they are portals in themselves to the sacred, to the other world, connected either with water or with you know, ley lines, very very poignant, very potent energy points on the land. So they're places where we can really, when we come into presence and connection with the land, because we've become so disconnected in many senses in the way we live our life, to come back to nature is just such an easy thing to do. And then it's not just a sightseeing tour, as all other tours are. You don't go to see things, you come to experience them and let them, you feel them through your being, I suppose expressed and heightened through a sense of storytelling, through a sense of music, that you really allow that flow to rush through your body and help you really feel what's in your heart and where your passion lies.
Sure, beautiful. Well, and of course, you know, poetry and story and music and dance and ritual and ceremony, you know, all of that is very right brain, which is divine feminine, which is you know, the creative, the emotional, the spiritual, all of that. And of course, I mean, I have to say, this is one of the things I'm proudest about my own personal Irish ancestry and the Irish people. You know, U2 and Samuel Beckett and Van Morrison and Damien Dempsey, and, you know, the list goes on and on and on of you know, world-class, you know, spirit guides who bring their work through poetry and music.
Yeah, absolutely. It is in the land, and it's just allowing it to flow through us. It's allowing that magic, that wisdom, that poetry, that creative expression to flow through us. Because when you look in ancient times, creativity, poetry, storytelling, the bards were at the top of the list when it came to, you know, those who were most important in society. And look what's happened. It's nearly been, yeah, exactly. So that has been kept alive in Ireland for sure. There's no doubt about it. With the amount of, as you say, the amount of artists that have reached the world with this beauty. But it's important to remember that, you know, that is the most important thing in life. That it's not about the doing, it's not about the achieving and the success. It's important to mention. So yeah, you say that it's about those divine feminine qualities. Yes. We've kind of lost those through society, through the way that we've been living our lives. So it's important to bring those back, but it's also important not to lose the beauty of the masculine too. It has to be a balance. And I think when we start from a place of holding that divine feminine within, then we know how to take right action. Then the masculine can come in, because we're coming from the right place, rather than starting from an action that needs to be done and then we're chasing our tails. Sure. Which is how life has been. So it's kind of reversing that a little bit, but bringing the balance in is really important.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well said. You know, living from the inside out rather than just the outside in is the way my guides put it.
Yeah, that's it.
Right, and it's a skill. That every one of us, you know, what is in anyone is potentially in everyone, is my belief. And so it's a skill that we can learn to do as we meditate, pray, and give and receive inspiration and strive to be of service. You've shared so many mind-blowing stories with me about your own healing journey on the land, and you shared some great ones with Joanne and myself when we walked with you around the Hill of Tara. Is there any story that comes to mind that might help people understand where you're coming from today?
Well, I guess that first one, which brings me back to about 20 years ago, when I was in what I thought was my career of advertising, having come from, long story, but I was so overworked, so overstressed and overburdened that I actually couldn't exist within the workspace without just breaking into tears at any moment. It was just like I was cracking up. I was visually on the verge of breakdown. And what I understood then was breakthrough, obviously. But I took a week off. I had to. I couldn't function properly. And it was in that week off that, as I said, I went to Glendalough. When I came back, they told me I was replaced by 6 people just for that week to keep up with the workload that I was doing.
That's all.
So it really, made me think, oh, right, it's not just me. And there was that sense of me coming to my awareness that, why am I doing that? Why am I looking to please so many people? Why am I looking to prove myself to myself, I guess, and the more you give, the more people will just take, give, absolutely. Run yourself flat into the ground. Anybody will be willing to, take that. And so I guess in my own sense of, I wasn't even connected to meditation or anything at that point in my life. I just had that sense to go to nature, to go to Glendalough, and to just allow myself to breathe, to just take in the beauty and take in the peace, and allow that connection of presence to really start to bubble up within me. So that was 20 years ago. So I guess you could say that the journey began back then. But as we piloted the 3 sites during the year last year, when we held a pilot of, at a private group at Glendalough, the transformation and the magic and the synchronicities that people who were there was just, you couldn't make it up. The feedback that we got was just huge. Even in 3 hours when we did it then, it was a sense of massive transformational breakthroughs for everybody, big insights. And it wasn't coming from me. We're just holding the space. It wasn't coming from, my colleagues, my friends who were holding it with me. It was holding the space so that others could find their own wisdom. And that's really important. So, I guess that's one of the stories.
Sure.
The others are, we could be here all day.
Sure.
But just the magic, I suppose, throughout all of them, the magic and the synchronicities are just beyond imagination, and just so humbling to be able to show up, to be of service, to allow the expression of whatever it is those energies are, through our understanding of their name, their archetype, through the myths and the legends and the land, and all of that working in harmony, is just such a humbling privilege,
Yes.
So to be able to share that with others on this journey really warms my heart, because I feel people are really hungry for this connection. I see it like, I do a lot of work in the corporate space where I share talks on mindfulness, presence, whatever you want to call it, whether it's, stress management or resilience or whatever.
Channeling.
It all comes down to the same thing. And I share this sense of reconnection with your true nature. And people are hungry for it. They're really hungry for it. I actually got a request for a talk next week in an IT company in Dublin, and the title of the talk is Ancient Ways for a Modern World. I'm really excited about that.
That's brilliant.
Bring this kind of stuff into the corporate space as well, because it's not something that's like kind of tentative. The word spiritual even or connection to the esoteric in the corporate world it doesn't really fit very well, but now they're ready, so it seems.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you know, as we said, honey, it's divine timing, and it makes great sense. And I think you're definitely the woman for the job. You know, so it's great to see that it's happening, and you're having such wonderful success with it. Um, can I just read a little bit here as we finish up from your flyer?
Sure.
Yeah. Um, Danu invites us to drop into the experience of being at one with nature and ourselves, and there is not much written about her as a goddess. She suggests that her energy is not loud. She doesn't seek attention. She waits patiently for those to come and seek her counsel, her soothing, warming, comfort, and reassurance. She invites us to go within and to reclaim our own internal sense of safety and peace. I think that's really beautifully said.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That is really coming from my understanding in my living that, and being shown what that means. You know, with the rising feminine, a lot of the time you see images of women with spears and you know, guns blazing, but it's not that. We're not meant to be that. It's meant to be just the stillness, the holding. So that mother archetype energy of Danu is the energy that waits patiently, and that, as I said in the flyer, she doesn't go shouting from the rooftops. She just waits. She is that center point, that black hole of creativity that just magnetizes everything. Doesn't need to shout about anything. It's a soft, quiet knowing and trust of presence.
Yeah.
And it's an energy that is really needed right now in the world when there's so much pain.
Yeah. Yeah.
We can tend to get triggered by the pain and go into anger, and the fire rises to the head. And she asks us to really witness that pain and love it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's the only way it's going to be transformed.
Yes. Yes.
So, yeah.
I agree. That's beautifully put. Yeah, astrologically, just to throw this in here real quickly, I've been learning about, there's Chiron, which is the wounded healer that a lot of people are familiar with. And then his consort, his partner, is called Cherryclow. And so while Chiron in the ancient story has the wound that never heals until he dies and is reborn, so his partner, his divine feminine, holds the space, as you just said so beautifully, for that healing to be possible, for that healing to happen, for him to not lose faith and to keep going and keep surrendering and keep trusting. Yeah. And you know, in that death and rebirth, then he is healed, and one assumes the two of them can, yes, have their divine partnership at the higher level.
I saw when you posted that the other day, and it just really spoke to me of that energy of Danu as well. It just made so much sense. It's like, of course, yeah, wow. And that she's only been discovered now.
Yes,
the timing is amazing, isn't it?
Yes, she's been discovered, I think, in recent history, but that she figures into this next 2-year period. And both Joanne and I looked at our charts, and that Chiron and Cherryclow are right next to each other, at least in the natal chart. So one imagines in the progress chart it could be the same, but that's, like we're saying, this is 2020, which is 4, which is structure and foundation and grounding and practicality and being real, being authentic, being truthful, being in your power, all of that is just unraveling all the layers of the ego that are not coming with us on the journey.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. And also, I was thinking this morning as well, the portal and the massive shift that we went through on the 12th of January with, the reconnection of the umbilical cord,
yes,
between the great central sun and the earth. And the
right.
story goes that umbilical cord had been disconnected for 26,000 years, and that it could only be, it's only now that it's reconnecting. But I was on the hill of Tara, as many people around the world were holding the space and really connecting into that reconnection at points, at sacred portal points around the globe, reactivating the the rainbow serpent, the
Yes.
dragon lines of the masculine and the feminine.
Yes.
And I found myself on the hill of Tara, actually, yeah, had another realization during the week that I'd already connected to Glastonbury back in April last year.
Right.
With another experience that seemed to be connected to that one without knowing at the time what it was for. It was like a preparation work for this to happen. But anyway, so I was on the hill of Tara on the 12th, and just an overwhelming sense of peace and that all is well. And that sense of it just made so much sense all of a sudden that of course we have gone as humanity into a sense of disconnection, isolation, not being able to connect with each other because of that greater energy of the earth's umbilical cord of being disconnected from the great central sun of truth. Then of course, how could we find that? But it took the will and the desire of millions of people for that reconnection to happen, to make it happen, you know? Otherwise it wouldn't have. It was from our heartfelt wish, we want this to happen. So it's amazing to witness, you know, what can happen on such a massive scale over such a long period of time, and what an honor it is to be here right now. Working with all of these energies and tribe, sacred tribe. We're finding each other all the time.
Yes, yes, beautifully said, hon. Beautifully said.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah.
Thanks, Lou. It's a pleasure as always.
Thank you, darling.
Yeah.
So the first event is next weekend, Saturday, Sunday, which day?
Sunday.
Sunday.
It's Sunday from 11 until 1.
Okay.
It's actually part of the Herstory Light Festival.
Yes.
Without which it wouldn't probably happen at this time. So this is just a taster at Glendalough of the rest of the unfolding of the Myths of Danu as part of the Herstory Light Festival. The Herstory Light Festival illuminates women who have paved the way but who have been hidden in the shadows of history, and Herstory seeks to illuminate that into the outside world. So where there's an external illumination of, you know, a portrait or a painting of a goddess or a woman of modern times who've made changes onto like public buildings, for example, I really felt called to do the Myths of Danu as an illumination within of that energy. So it's on Sunday from 11 until 1, and anybody who's interested in finding more about it can email me. It's o'connortracy@gmail.com.
Great.
So OCONNORTREACY.
Yes, and I have that on my page, and we'll repost your email with the links for this chitty chat. Yeah.
Great. Thanks so much. Yeah.
You're so welcome, sweetheart. My pleasure.
It's a pleasure. Yeah. Glad to see you're feeling better too.
Well, you know, I was just sitting here thinking, all right, will I share this or not? But so I have to share this now. Thank you. So, you know, the three of us went to the Hill of Tara the first time for Joanna and myself in this lifetime. And then I think I mentioned to you, coming back, we literally ran out of gas, which is something I've never done in this lifetime before, you know. And so we got to be on the hill there on the freeway for 2 hours as the darkness came. And thankfully, one of our phone calls was answered. So off we go, and then we're 2 hours out of our schedule to get Joanne onto her flight back to her family that night. So that we made by 10 minutes. And then for the next 3 weeks, I was like flat on my back with a chest cold going, you know, yeah. So I think there was more going on there than meets the eye, I'm realizing in cosmic hindsight.
That's the beauty of these sites, and like the Hill of Tara, as you saw, lots of people from all different walks of life come to be on that hill, and you know, dog walkers, Gaelic football players, kids, you know, everybody's there because it's such an open space. But when you're open, I guess, connecting in with the energies, and you ask, you receive.
Yes, yes.
In whatever form it's going to come.
That's right. Out of the blue in the way you least expect it, as my guides say. Yeah. Brilliant. Well, I'm delighted to reconnect with you anytime, hon. And best of luck with this. If I can get out there, I definitely will. And let's chat again soon. How's that sound?
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Thanks. Thank you.
Thanks, Lou.
You're welcome, sweetheart.
Mm-hmm.
Have a great evening.
You too.
All right.
Thanks.
Bye for now.